Same stuff, different loss. Let's discuss.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Cardinals, Alex Clancy here. Follow me on Twitter, Clancy's Corner. Follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen, free wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Please go to the YouTube channel, search Locked On Arizona Cardinals, hit that subscribe button, man. Turn notifications on. I see the likes are going up. If you just could leave a like for me, I feel like helps with the algorithm, allows it to be spread to more people. We can spread the love. We can make the everydayer family bigger. Cardinals lose. Unfortunately, I've said those two words in succession in the same sentence more times than not since the bye week. There's a lot to unpack from this game, even though the Cardinals have been eliminated from playoff contention. Now the Rams are thrust into the playoffs. And while it wasn't as bad of a loss as it looked, there are some glaring things to take away from the game yesterday, Saturday night. And here's the thing. It's kind of a grab bag, a mishmash of like what I was talking about, the things you don't want to see because we haven't seen them in a long time. And why would you display them in a game that doesn't matter? And, with all the pressure off, and we saw some of those. One was obvious. One was okay to stomach because it's a little bit more nuanced. And then a lot of it is bad. So I'll hit all that in this first segment, the positives in the second segment, because there definitely were some. And Drew Petzing. What are we going to do with Drew Petzing? What are we going to do? We'll discuss that in the final segment. So, Cardinals lose. Just quick numbers wise, they lost 13-9. This is one of those for everydayers who have been around for a long time. You'll know I haven't used this in a while, but this is one of those games where if you look at the score sheet and the stats and you don't look at the score, it's like, oh, the Cardinals blew them out. The Cardinals blew them out. Look at these numbers. I mean, they were almost over 150 yards of total yards more than the Rams. Passing yards almost over 100. Rushing yards over 60. Yards per play were more. Double the first downs. Better third down efficiency. 20 more plays. And they were on the field for 37 minutes. Almost 37 minutes. That's a recipe for what we saw in week 2. Now, 9 penalties, 4 sacks given, 2 interceptions. Even though the interceptions were late in the game, it's still turnovers. But it's one of those. How do the Cardinals lose this game? How do they find a way to lose this game? The Rams didn't play very well. The Cardinals' defense played fantastic for the most part. And they were fresh. They were spry. The offense did what they were supposed to do, be on the field. They just couldn't score touchdowns. There were a couple questionable decisions by Kyler Murray, which we'll get into in a second. And the thing that pisses me off the most is what I'll talk about in the final segment. Surrounding Drew Petzing. And it's not just, oh, he called a bad gamer. Oh, he called a great gamer. Oh, he's got to go. It's none of that. It's more constructive. You know me. I'm the level-headed one for the most part, unless it's not needed to be. The things we don't want to see because we haven't seen them all year from the Cardinals, and in a meaningless game with no pressure, Trey McBrides stat line, I called it. I might have said 11 for 110 or I definitely could have said 12 for 120 and a touchdown. Nailed it on Friday because that's exactly what it was. Where the hell was that touchdown play call? It wasn't the flipsy doodles that we've seen, the homage to Bruce Arians and Larry Fitzgerald with a little left-handed flip, the Travis Kelce. It wasn't that. It was a fantastic play call inside the 5. You put Trey McBride in motion, 2 blockers flanked out on that side, or 2 pass catchers flanked out on that side acting as blockers, and he just rummages into the end zone for a touchdown. Where were things like that? That's a little foreshadowing to the final segment. It's like, yeah, you've seen Trey McBride put numbers up like that. Okay. Trey McBride is always open. That is fantastic. And The fact that he didn't score a touchdown all year and that he got one in week 7, which was so obvious that it was going to happen. And I know, the game plan should always be to get Trey McBride in the end zone. It's not, the season's almost over, he doesn't have one. No, that's a stupid reason. And I'm not saying that's the reason. It just hasn't worked this year. Kyler's missed him multiple times wide open in the back of the end zone. It just hasn't happened yet. And then it happened, and then it's like, of course it did. Of course it did. That's one. Same stuff, different loss. That was the things we didn't want to see because we hadn't seen them all year. The same stuff, different loss. And this is concerning, but the game didn't matter, so it's kind of difficult to really discern how concerning it is. And I know that this is going to sound like a pass, even though it shouldn't be. But this is a two-parter, so stick with me for the next 4 minutes. The Kyler Murray first interception, the Hail Mary ball to Marvin Harrison Jr. It hasn't worked once. What are we doing here? It hasn't worked once. What are we doing here? The better play there, though, would be like there was less than 3.5 minutes left. It was 4th down. They had all their timeouts. I just would have punted there. And it's the same thing as a punt, but it looks a lot worse. It is a distinct choice to punt, and the defense had been stopping them all game, plus you have the 2-minute warning. I know it ended up being the same thing, but throwing an interception there in the way that it was thrown, because we've seen it so many times before, I didn't get that. There were multiple other options underneath where, I mean, it's the MO of catching defenses off guard. You throw it ahead of the line of scrimmage with a player running up the seam, getting momentum, having to run over one guy or beat one guy for the first down. You'd much rather that than a Hail Mary ball into double coverage. We've seen it before. Marvin Harrison Jr. is not ready for those yet. Marvin Harrison Jr. will be part of the positives, believe it or not, in the next segment. And then the same stuff, different loss. The one thing the Cardinals don't have with Kyler Murray, and I know this is an obvious thing because of his stature. I know it's obvious, but putting it in perspective of things. If Kyler Murray can't spin out like the Steve Young, Tony Romo spin out outside of the edge rusher, which he's fantastic at, it seems like teams have caught up to that, but when he's able to do it, it's one of the most elusive moves in football. If he's touched, he goes down for the most part. And the 3rd down pass blocking Saturday night was putrid. And I know they're down 3 offensive linemen. Russell Wilson had a bad offensive line pretty much the entire time he was in Seattle, and they made the playoffs every year. They had a better defense, sure. But it's like, just because you have a not 6'5" quarterback and not a perfect offensive line doesn't mean the offense has to crater just because the offensive line isn't playing very well. Now, the Cardinals were down 3 starters on offense, so I know it's not exactly the same, okay? But if Kyler Murray gets touched, he goes down. And that's something that isn't great, because if the offensive line isn't perfect, it kind of changes things a little bit. Now, that's not necessarily fair because Kyler Murray is able to get out of things at times. But if there's a bull rush and it's coming at him, if he can't spin out, he's going down. It's not like he can, float one over because he's not 6'5". Kyler Murray has many, many positives to his skill set that many/most other quarterbacks don't possess. But the downside of it is, and I'm not saying this is a joke, the shortcomings, like the weaknesses in his game, are impossible to circumvent if put in a bad situation. Unlike other quarterbacks, like, Josh Allen and guys like that are just like, tree trunks that can get out of tackles. Kyler Murray needs to not be touched or needs to, be barely, chipped, and he can get out of it, but can't complete a pass and he can't get out of tackles physically. It's a problem sometimes. All in all, the Cardinals played pretty well. They played pretty well. The interception was terrible. I guess I'll go a little long here. The last interception was something that can't happen from a 6th-year quarterback. Every day, you know me. I've always thought it was Kyler Murray, and I never really questioned it, that he's going to be the guy. I don't understand why when he puts such great touch on the ball at times, like some of the best in the league, he's got great touch, especially with deep balls, that he throws fastballs like he's at second base trying to get a runner out that's burning up the first baseline. I don't get it. And yeah, Trey McBride probably should have turned around a little bit more quickly, but 3 years in for Trey McBride and 6 years in for Kyler Murray, that needs to be a touchdown. Or you throw it away. If you don't think you have it and you got to zip it in there, throw it away. We're trying to make something work. They had plenty of time. They had a timeout. That is the only outcome that is inexcusable to happen from a 6-year quarterback and a guy who he's had on his roster for 3 years and who they've made magic together over the last 20 plus games. Can't happen. Inexcusable. And even though the game didn't matter, we're starting to see that as more of the rule as opposed to the exception to the rule when things get down to crunch time around the goal line for Kyler Murray. And that is not a good thing. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. What are the positives? There were many, believe it or not. And I'll discuss them next as we're all on here. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by our friends at Rocket Money. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? That's definitely happened to me. I had free subscriptions. I didn't even know I didn't realize I was still paying for it. And Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finance, man. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everyone and everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users that have saved over a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Locked On Cardinals. Again, please go to the YouTube channel, search Locked On Arizona Cardinals. We're not going to stop in the offseason. I know it's technically started. Got one game coming up. I don't know. We can talk tomorrow about the upsides and the downsides of playing the starters. And I'm just going to leave it at that. I'll leave a full tease for tomorrow. Positives yesterday. Marvin Harrison Jr. looked good. Okay. And I know this was one of those, you don't want to see it, what we don't want to see because we haven't seen it. They're still not on the same page with true timing routes. The first catch that Marvin Harrison Jr. had, the back shoulder throw is for sure a timing route, and Kyler Murray threw a dime. But I'm not counting that as a 50-50 timing route ball because it's him against the sideline. And Marvin Harrison Jr. is a wizard when it's just him versus the sideline. We've seen that. He's there. He's Pro Bowl level with that specifically already. And that was one of the redeeming qualities with him coming out of school. It's so difficult. 2 feet down, ball coming at you screaming, catching, make sure your feet are in, holding onto the ball through the catch. Wizard. Doesn't matter. Wizard. We've seen the first touchdown catch he ever had in the back of the end zone was that. It's that's the beginning. That's the starting point. And it gets the Rams. That's a starting point. That's it. You've got it. Once you have that, you don't lose that. And many wide receivers don't have that. He has that right away. That's a positive. 6 for 96. There were a couple other timing routes. There was one where he was dragging across the first down marker. Kyler Murray found him in stride, and he got a first down, and he took it up the field a little bit. Great. The intermediate stuff was working yesterday for Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr. The one thing I don't understand is why they don't get him involved around the line of scrimmage. I just don't understand it. He's not just an X receiver. Use him for everything. He's not Malik Neighbors. He's not as fast as Malik Neighbors. Okay. But Malik Neighbors is used in every way. And we'll get to that in the final segment. I'm not saying Drew Petzing is holding back Marvin Harrison Jr. and Kyler Murray. I'm not saying that. They are the players. They need to make more happen, and they should have made more happen this season. Before the game, it didn't matter. But this isn't a where the hell was that all year? We've seen this throughout the season, just not with as much regularity as you would like. Now, with that said, the weight of when we see the Kyler Murray to Marvin Harrison Jr. connection, that was responsible for 2 of the Cardinals' wins. in Miami and in San Francisco. Fourth down, Miami found, fourth down, San Francisco found Marvin Harrison Jr. on a 50-50 timing ball where he threw it up and the kid went up and got it. Okay, so we've seen important connections between the two. We haven't seen it enough. We haven't seen it with as much regularity, and we haven't seen it like in the middle of the game when they need a first down. We just haven't seen it enough. He should have had 30 more catches this year on 50 more targets. I know all of that. I get all of it, but James Conner was a stud. Trey McBride took the majority of the targets, and Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr. were on the same page for a good chunk of the season, whether it be 80% of one game and 20% of another. Collectively, they weren't on the same page for half the season. And that's concerning, sure. And the good stuff that we saw was really, really good. And that is very good to take away. You can look, he and Larry Fitzgerald had almost the same numbers their rookie season. Okay. Now, not saying he's going to be Larry Fitzgerald. I'm not saying that Kyler Murray was the quarterback that Larry Fitzgerald had. Irrespective of it, same numbers rookie year. Okay. That was a massive positive. I take that as a massive positive. 6 for 96, solid day. The other positives were all on defense. Okay, this secondary is legit. Max Melton with the deflection of the end zone on Puka Nacua. Puka Nacua is really good at football, and very few people can stop him. Okay, the Cardinals gave up very few points to a team that had been putting up points. In a must-have game, the Cardinals were one bad throw from their quarterback away from winning. This secondary is going to be very good for a very long time. Budda Baker looked good. Taylor-Demerson looked good. Garrett Williams looked good. Max Melton looked good. They gave up under 300 total yards to a Rams team that's light work. That's light work. So the magnitude of how important that is cannot be understated. We'll have a different conversation in the offseason multiple times about, what's wrong with the offense. Well, I'm not doing it now. I'll kind of give you a little wet your whistle in the fire. I hate that. I'm not going to delete it, but I hate it. We'll do a little appy of it in the next segment. But the defense looked great. Baron Browning looked good. Okay, here's the thing. Just a thing to mention here. When you have a Cardinals defense that is supposed to be a year away, and they've shown up the way that they have for like the last 12 weeks on and off, regardless of having little to no pass rush. The ceiling for that is there is no ceiling with the amount of money they have in the draft picks they have to add defensive tackle and edge rusher help. And you couple that with the offense when it's at its peak, cooking with gas. And I know that it's all hypothetical, not hypothetical, that it's hard to see the forest through the trees with the Cardinals offense right now, especially with how they've sputtered down the stretch. The defense has been the strength of this team pretty much for the majority of the season. And the majority is 51%. So I'm happily saying the majority of the season. And again, they haven't been perfect. The pass rush has been non-existent for a large portion. But if you had to talk about the more stable side of the ball, it's the defense. The Cardinals offense either looks like a top 5 offense or a bottom 5 offense. There's nothing in between. And with losing James Conner yesterday, it didn't help, but the game's over. Like, James Conner tried to give it a go. They should have just sat him. With the way that you saw him at practice, with videos coming out of practice, like, there's no reason to play him. But he tried, and he hobbled off. Michael Carter, it sucks that he's not really getting an opportunity, because every time he's gotten an opportunity, he's produced, but a lot of it has been out of playoff contention time, some last year. I just wonder, the fact that they drafted Trey Benson, pretty much, that was the icing on the cake for the Michael Carter experiment or experience in Arizona. Drew Petzing. Here we go. Next. At Clancy's Corner on YouTube. Please go to the YouTube channel. Search Locked On Arizona Cardinals. Hit that subscribe button, man. Turn notifications on. If you want to go leave a review where reviews are left, cool. Leave a like on the video, please. Thanks for being here. One game left. Saturday night didn't look as bad as it was, but it could have looked a lot better because there was a lot to be had. Almost 400 total yards and 9 points just isn't acceptable. Drew Petzing. Okay, it's been an interesting, like those animated, like leading rusher for the 2024 season. These things you see on social media now, where it starts and then as the weeks progress, there are names that go up and down, and it shows like the different rankings as they move up and down. If you don't just Google it, you'll know what I mean. The pie chart, the blame game pie chart for the Cardinals has fluctuated like that throughout the majority of the season. And it's like, okay, pass rush is in there, Kyler Murray's performance, Marvin Harrison Jr. not being, totally ready to be a wide receiver one, whatever it is. And Sean Murphy, but like there's just a bunch, and then it slowly starts to dissipate, and then you get bigger percentages. And it's really come down to Kyler Murray versus Drew Petzing of late from the, what I hear from Cardinals fans and talk with the media members and my buddies just around. It's like, that's kind of what the consensus is. And it's always easier to blame it on a coach because he's not the player. I'm not comparing this to Cliff Kingsbury and Kyler Murray. And I will say this because, the Commanders clinch a playoff spot. I will tell you this. Cliff Kingsbury is a good offensive coordinator. He was a horrifically terrible head coach. So if he was just calling plays, you had an adult in the room like Dan Quinn leading the Arizona Cardinals, he could still be here. But couldn't do both. They both suffered because he was doing both. So with Drew Petzing, this is kind of, I thought about this yesterday. The reason why I didn't record yesterday, I was hanging with family a little bit, but I was thinking about Drew Petzing specifically in the sense that what I've discussed throughout the year has been Drew Petzing's offense doesn't fit having a bona fide stud wide receiver one in it. Run the ball, play action, tight end, wide receivers like tertiary in hierarchy for targets and for looks and for, just touches altogether. With that said, what I saw from the play calling from Drew Petzing Saturday, was one of the best games he's called all year. And that's so frustrating. When I say best games he's called all year, the offensive line being terrible, I will give the benefit of the doubt to Drew Petzing. They couldn't stop the third down blitz. Just couldn't do it. Could not do it. When they had time, and I'm not saying in a vacuum. I'm saying when it wasn't rushing six, and they just bull rushed the Cardinals offensive line that had 2 of 5 starters in it. Like when it wasn't that, everything else. It's not that they only scored 9 points. He didn't call it a great game. Some of the play call was so developed and so creative. That was one of the, hope you don't see this because we've been waiting for it all year, and we saw it last year. We saw it the way they used Trey McBride in the slip screen game, the touchdown, the Greg Dortch, like with a little like halfback circle route, but it turned into running up the sideline, and Kyler Murray just threw it out and he went and got, like, we haven't seen any of that stuff this year. The wrinkles we haven't seen. It's James Conner, it's play action, it's Trey McBride, it's hopefully get Marvin Harrison Jr. involved, it's a little Michael Wilson, and that's about it. And it's frustrating because, like, where the hell was that? And I know, again, they only scored 9 points. I completely understand that. And like, it's not like I would put this more on Kyler Murray than Drew Petzing. I thought Drew Petzing called a great game for the most part. That was without James Conner, which is fine. I mean, it happens. Running backs get hurt. And I know the game didn't count. And that's the frustrating part. It's like, where was this against Seattle? Where were the little plays that kept opposing defenses off guard? A couple Kyler Murray design runs that worked last week. Where the hell was that? The Kyler Murray design run part to keep opposing defenses off guard was something I talked about for the first 2 months of the season. And when they did it, it worked for the most part. And Like the 49ers, the Charger one, I know the Charger one was a broken play, but the 49er one was one. It's like, oh, look over here. Nope, Kyler Murray's gone. Where was that? Kyler Murray didn't slow down. He's not a slower runner now. Why not more of that? He's not a pure pocket passer. I don't understand why anybody tries to make him that way. He wasn't drafted to be a pocket passer. He was drafted to be 70-30, pass run, 75-25, 80-20, whatever it is. And that's the frustrating part. It's like, oh, so you do know how to use Marvin Harrison Jr. You just haven't. And that's the thing that bothers me. And I will put some 35%, 40%, even 49% on Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr. just not being on the same page. Okay. But Drew Petzing showed some, ooh, what was that? Where did that come from? Where the hell is that? And it's one of those things where it's like, oh, happy, angry. Ooh, happy, angry. Why now? And it's not to say he hasn't done it all year, but the Cardinals have looked terrible since coming out of their bye week, and he has the keys to the entire playbook, and we just haven't seen it. And I don't know why. I don't know what it means. And I also don't know what the future holds. The messed up part is he's not even close to a bottom 10 offensive coordinator. The thing is, he's not top 10 either. So if the future is now Cable Guy is good enough, or is excellent what's necessary for the Arizona Cardinals to really reap the benefits of what's set to be a massively impactful 2025, for better or worse. Something to think about. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. Remember, without you, there is no me. I'll talk to you tomorrow.